here for folks like us. Wrong city, wrong people.
And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Aesop Grim here, and this is the continuation of my WoW TBC playthrough for my Shadow Priest. Now, this is Thursday, so tonight I am raiding Karazhan with Trump Mugshot over on the Horde side. And as long as I remember to, I'm going to record that. And I don't know when exactly you guys are going to see this stuff. It shouldn't be too far ahead of the line. I keep wanting to go Horde side there. But last we left off, I had dinged 60. And I went and I did training. I couldn't even train all my spells. I went broke. And so I've got about 8 gold. And I have leveled professions some. Let's take a look at that. My enchanting is at 107 and my tailoring is at 212. And so, did I even catch that on camera? I can't remember if I did or not, if I dinged level 60 while I was recording. Well, if I didn't, here I am, I'm level 60. So within about a 24-hour time period, I got my professions up to 107 and 212 respectively, and I gained 2 levels. So now that we're level 60, I'm still not good. I've got 171 bonus damage, 3,000 hit points, and about 5,400 mana. So stuff still hits hard, and I still don't really hit very hard myself, so things die slow, and it's just a bit of a grind. But we're going to continue trying to make gold out here in Outlands so that I can get back to training professions. And we're going to sign up for a dungeon also. I think I'm going to do that right now. And because I want to listen to it again, I have a couple Steve Turley videos I want to hear from yesterday that we're going to go over. Both of them are about Iran. So I'm going to listen to those as we quest. And you can get some more idea about Turley and whether you like his style or not, or his conclusions or not. So this one is titled "You Won't Believe the Polls as NATO Deploys Military for Iran War." And it was put up on March 4th. Yep, that was yesterday. Okay. For you guys, it obviously was a few days ago. Here we go.
Happening right now, and the Democrats and the legacy media are absolutely dumbfounded. While CNN and MSNBC are running poll after poll trying to convince you that nobody supports this war, brand new polling just dropped that's literally sending shockwaves through the Democrat establishment. The number backing Operation Epic Fury is simply astonishing. All as NATO has now officially entered this war. And I'm going to break it all down for you as we enter day 5 of this monumental moment. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you rightly understand this absolutely historic moment that's unfolding in the Middle East and beyond, with breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else, so make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, you and I both know that the legacy media and big tech are teaming up to throttle what you're allowed to see. My Patriot Alerts is where I send what they bury, so click that link below and...
Oh yeah, speaking about big tech, I read that Trump's administration, so like his EPA and big tech, have just signed agreements that big tech will have to finance their own power. So for those of us who've been noticing that as AI develops, these data farms that these companies are having to use are soaking up more and more and more and more power. and we were worried that this was going to have to be publicly funded because it kind of looked like they were swinging for that. Trump put a kibosh on that, so that's good news for your average Joe out there. All right, let's get past his advertisement and let him keep on telling us about Iran.
Don't let censorship set footage of a U.S. Central Dive in here on the latest. We've seen major escalations in the last 12 hours. The U.S. has now struck over 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions across Iran, operating 24/7 strikes. Admiral Brad Cooper of CENTCOM said that the first 24 hours of this operation were nearly double the scale of the 2003 Iraq shock and awe campaign. The Department of War just released this footage of a U.S. submarine destroying Iran's prized ship, the Soleimani, in the Indian Ocean. They thought they were safe in international waters. Yeah, there is no international order anymore. That's one of the key themes of this channel. The liberal international order has been replaced with a great powers civilizationalist order, and President Trump is actively positioning the United States as the chief architect and power of that multipolar civilizationalist order. The U.S. has destroyed 17 Iranian naval vessels, including a submarine. U.S. officials have confirmed that there is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. President Trump himself told reporters Tuesday that Iran is running out of launchers and that just about everything's being knocked out: their Navy, their Air Force, and their most military installations. The Israeli IDF launched a broad wave of strikes targeting dozens of military sites across Tehran, including Bajij paramilitary headquarters, missile launchers, logistics facilities. Again, in the historic first, an Israeli 535 Adir, which we featured in our video yesterday on B-2 bombers and the significance of technopolarity for this conflict. We'll get to that in a minute. But that F-35 shot down a piloted Iranian fighter jet in air-to-air combat over Tehran, the first ever manned aircraft kill by an F-35. Israel also sent ground troops into southern Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah and issuing evacuation orders for 80-plus towns and villages. And now, in a major escalation, NATO air defense systems shot down an Iranian ballistics missile heading toward Turkish airspace. The missile was detected crossing Iraq for 80
was it
fighter
the first ever?
Relations.
I want to know what he said about it. Was marking the first ever shoot down. I think it was of a drone by a manned F-35 is what he said. But I want to make sure I hear that right.
The Israeli IDF launched a broad wave of strikes targeting dozens of military sites across Tehran, including Bajij paramilitary headquarters, missile launchers, logistics facilities. Again, in the historic first, an Israeli 535 Adir, which we featured in our video yesterday on B-2 bombers and the significance of technopolarity for this conflict. We'll get to that in a minute. But that F-35 shot down a piloted Iranian fighter jet in air-to-air combat over Tehran, the first ever manned aircraft kill by an F-35. Israel also sent ground troops into southern Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah and issuing evacuation orders for 80-plus towns and villages. And now, in a major escalation, NATO air defense systems shot down an Iranian ballistics missile heading toward Turkish airspace. The missile was detected crossing Iraqi and Syrian airspace. It was intercepted over the eastern Mediterranean with debris falling in Turkey's Hatay province. No casualties were reported, but a NATO country was officially attacked. And so the alliance has now been pulled into this. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met with President Trump yesterday in the Oval Office and said he and Trump are on the exact same page about the Iranian regime as is NATO's General Secretary Mark Rutte. And so on day 5, things are escalating rapidly. The U.S. and Israel have effectively destroyed Iran's navy. They've severely degraded Iran's air defenses and missile infrastructure, and they've achieved air dominance over Tehran. But Iran is far...
This is moving rapidly, guys. If you pull back and try to view I don't tend to do this, but I'm going to start doing this. Is kind of new for me. I don't know why I haven't thought of this before, but I've read about all kinds of wars in history, and you read about them oftentimes. You can read about them from different perspectives. You can look at them from the tactical perspective, where a battle is described about, say, like an ambush and how somebody set an ambush up or how they were able to overcome one. Or you can look at it from the operational and strategic views. The operational view, I'm not great at this part, but I think the operational view would be like the view of the general on the battlefield controlling a large area of operation with several battalions engaged in a cohesive battle plan. So you might be using one battle to draw attention away from your main objective and stuff like that. That would be operational. And then the strategic view, I think, is whenever you pull out even further, and if you could imagine yourself playing a map game where you're in command of not only your own forces in a certain area of operation, but like global operations and alliances and things like that. And so what you're starting to see here, if you can pull back to that level and think of this in terms of, I guess I'm kind of tipping my hand here, but as if you're playing a game, that's how it works for me. You're seeing the isolation of a nation. You're seeing backroom deals being made that we're not hearing about. We're having to infer that from what's happening on the battlefield. But every time that you hear these people who were kind of like yesterday being like, I disavow this, this is insanity, that would be somebody that Iran was a couple days ago planning on maybe exploiting the sentiment of in order to apply pressure on the U.S. to cease strikes. Well, now those same people, you just heard Turley talk about Germany, are actually coming out and saying, no, we're on the same exact page as President Trump. Well, that's a sharp shift in rhetoric. There must have been some kind of discussion in the background, and maybe even some coercion, right? Uh-oh. Where did this guy come from? Oh, well, okay, I see. We're just gonna dogpile now. That's how it tends to happen. You just get people converge on you from out of nowhere. Okay, I think it's just me and him now. Of course not. Okay. Let's get this guy first. I am low on mana. Well, son of a bee. I swear you people just simply gosh damn frickin' materialize. I really wish I had a stun. Where'd that bish come from? I think she did materialize. I think that was a repop. It's probably what happened in the other area too. So anyway, let's continue to listen to Turley, and maybe I've given you a lens here. Listen to how the strategic situation is developing, is unfolding for Iran. Oh my God, you have got to be gosh damn kidding me. Can I go someplace far, far the F away where this doesn't happen anymore? We are gonna go sit on these ramparts that belong to our city here, so I can get this thing started and tank up on mana and health and start working my way in again. Damnation! You know, I know every one of you know this feeling. What ridiculousness. Alright, here we go. Let's listen to some more happy news here. I think it's happy news. I get excited about this stuff. Man, the wars under Obama and Bush, like, I used to appreciate my experience under Bush compared to what I experienced under Obama, but Trump puts them both to shame. This is how you do a war. You'll see over these two videos that we're going to listen to, it sure is looking to me like this is not the forever war that everybody is worried about. This is a in and out war. This is a get in, break their spine and shatter their dreams, and make their women cry for them. Although that's not happening in Iran states, all of their women are rejoicing, which is even better. Talk about getting cucked. You know? And that's how the military is supposed to be used, man. It shouldn't be these long, protracted, nation-building kind of, we're going to get you to become like us, and we're going to put McDonald's in everywhere, and here eventually, just like in Afghanistan, you're going to be flying the pride flag. That's BS, man. I don't support that. I don't support trying to go and coerce people's entire cultures into being something else. I ain't trying to achieve that. If they want to adopt some of those values that we have in the West out of a sense of egalitarianism, or, you know, hey, ladies, you don't have to wear a hijab anymore, then I'm all for it. But if they don't want to, then that's fine also. It's their nation. And I don't want to be there for years on end trying to slowly, I don't know, get them to become the mirror image of us. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that we do. And even if I did, I wouldn't want to foist it upon other people through underhanded means of influence. I don't know, you know, you get my drift. It's just, it's kind of disgusting to me, and I really like how Trump does it. Get in, break their hearts, break all their toys, give them a really bad few days, and then get out and leave the rest up to their people. You know, and we'll see how it goes, because the Middle East is kind of a quagmire, and it can be quicksand. At least that's been all of my experience. I've never seen it go any other way, so we'll find out. But if there's anybody who can do it, I think it's Trump. So we'll hit play here.
Far from surrendering. Things are escalating rapidly. The U.S. and Israel have effectively destroyed Iran's navy. They've severely degraded Iran's air defenses and missile infrastructure, and they've achieved air dominance over Tehran. But Iran is far from surrendering. It continues to launch hundreds of drones and missiles daily across the region with minimal damage, but certainly inflicting minimal damage, but certainly a sign of defiance. The conflict has spread to Lebanon and the Gulf, and NATO has now been pulled in after an Iranian missile headed towards Turkey. And we're also continuing to see a succession crisis following Khamenei's death. You think so, right? His second son is now being tapped as his successor. Obviously, it's a job nobody wants, but that succession crisis does add a wild card. It raises the question as to whether a new supreme leader will continue to escalate the situation, or will he seek an off-ramp to bring this to a close? So that's what's...
Okay, so when Tehran launched their missiles in retaliation, they hit a bunch of Gulf states, and then they also apparently sent one towards Turkey. Well, that's an attack on NATO. An attack on... That's what they've been trying to get with Ukraine for the longest time. An attack on any NATO nation is an attack on the entire country, or the entire alliance, and it by contract, by alliance, brings all of NATO in. So that's what happened. And from what I hear, a lot of those attacks were happening not because Iran necessarily ordered every single one of them explicitly, but because the command and control function has been destroyed so thoroughly that Iran just simply couldn't tell them stop. They were operating on old default orders of, if this happens, then do that, because they weren't getting any updated orders. All right, let's hit play.
What's going on in the Iranian theater as of day 5. But here back at home, we're now starting to get more fine-tuned polling on the attitudes and sentiments among voters towards this operation. And of all places, CBS just dropped an absolute bombshell. And it has the Democrats and the legacy media completely reeling. Did you know that Alzheimer's isn't waiting for old age
Another
anymore?
commercial?
It's spreading. It's accelerating. And it's showing up decades earlier.
Oh, that's pretty quick.
Early onset, you know, even by the risk. It shows that many bioactive compounds we're seeing online among you approve from C% off plus free shipping. You'll love them. Call them now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. Call them right now. Take a look at this poll from CBS. This just dropped. Look at this. I mean, they asked respondents if they support this war based on how long it's estimated to last. This is absolutely brilliant. So, do you approve or disapprove of military action against Iran if the conflict were to last days or weeks, months, or years? Look at the level of support for a campaign that lasts days or weeks. Look at that. 76%. So it's an 80-20 issue.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, this is one
all
poll.
This pathetic dooming that you're seeing online among some of these right-wing influencers, I mean, it just blew up.
However, what he mentioned is significant. It's a CBS poll. They traditionally lean left. They're part of the mainstream media. So with history, I was taught by my history professor, when we look back at ancient history and we find somebody who raises, like, let's say a stone and writes in there something really kind and nice about themselves, we take that with a grain of salt, because we know that propaganda and legend was an enormous part of the ancient world and how you stayed in power and how you kept your people looking up to you. But if we find them do the same thing for their enemies, we consider that a much more reliable piece of testimony, because whenever your enemy is saying, really giving you a lot of praise for what you did, then and it coincides with what you yourself claimed in documents that we found from your culture, then it lends heavy levels of credibility. So that's a little bit of what we have happening here. This CBS is a part of the legacy media. If you go through, there are charts out there that show how many legacy media news anchors, CEOs, and owners are married directly into the deep state. It's ridiculous, and you can see why we have something called the Mockingbird Media, Operation Mockingbird. They are not our friends. They have a vested interest in protecting the deep state, so they normally are going after Donald Trump. And so this poll by them, if anything's going to be doctored, it's going to be by these guys. And the fact that they're coming back 76% in favor as long as it's weeks long, even though it's just one poll that we're looking at here, I would say that that's significant. All right, let's continue.
Up with this one poll. As you can see, the low support numbers that we did see in a couple of the polls, particularly the Reuters poll, which, by the way, is a sham because, what was it, 30% of the people didn't know, and then they got included in with the 70% in the coverage in the legacy media. They got included with the supposed 70% that do not support this war. It's absolute nonsense. But as you can see, the low support numbers, whenever they were featured, came more from concerns that this is going to drag on for months or even years, which of course is what we've been accustomed to. That's a perfectly reasonable concern. It wasn't just Bush. Obama's campaigns in Libya lasted 7 years, and his campaign in Syria lasted 11. It was Trump, by the way, who finally brought that Syrian campaign to an end just last month in February when he ordered the last 1,000 troops back
we got
home.
something
He
out
actually
here.
ordered an end to that conflict back in his first term, but his generals ignored him. Their fidelity was to the deep state back then. Needless to say, they've all since been removed. So the real issue here, the hesitancy that the Reuters poll originally found in supporting this war, was rooted in voters' concern that this was going to be yet another forever war that President Trump had promised he would not get us into. And that's exactly the patent nonsense that's been spewed this week by so many online commentators who are all flipping out that this war was the biggest mistake of Trump's life. He betrayed us. He destroyed the MAGA coalition. Nonsense. Horse feathers, poppycock. If this lasts for the 4 to 5 weeks that Trump has promised, this is and will remain an 80-20 issue. This gets higher support than border security, for heaven's sake. 76%.
Now, normally you don't hear Turley get this kind of astonishingly animated, but he's not the only one out there. I think Dan Bongino is pointing this out too. There is a contingency of supposed MAGA influencers, and I don't know. I say supposed because I think some of them are doing it just purely for the money, and that's what they're saying too. That they're farming the algorithm, and the algorithm really favors controversy and dooming. And the other half, I think, are just they probably are MAGA, but they're exceptionally. You get this a lot with Gen Z right now. Really distrustful of Israel. I don't really actually want to say anti-Semitic. I think some of them are, but I don't think that's the answer to all of them. I think they just have noticed an awful lot of influence from Israel in our politics, and they're looking at some historical things also, and they don't want nothing to do. They can't figure out who to trust and who not to trust, so they say just wash your hands of all of it. And they right now are convinced that Israel's pulling the puppet strings of Donald Trump and coercing us into their war whenever we need to be focused at home. These people here, like I said, they tend to be Gen Z. These are your least experienced bunch, okay? I'm not mocking them. This is just a part of growing up. They have their eyes glued on what's right in front of their face. They can't afford to get married and have kids. They can't buy a home. The nation is flooded with foreigners. We have truckers on the highway they can't read those signs, and they're running people over, you know. We've got tons and tons of money, taxpayer funds going towards fraud, waste, and abuse, actually is how I would term it. It's not just fraud. They see all the things happening here at home, and they're saying, hey man, clean this up first. Well, what I believe is that none of that is happening organically. That's being orchestrated against us by people like China through people like Iran. and George Soros is in on it. And there's this other guy, Singham, I think, an Indian who, a billionaire, who is also doing this. And they are, it is, they're, and what am I looking for? Private funds being married to state power. That's all being bridged. Is this special guy? It is. You need to die, brother. And those forces externally, this includes Maduro down in Venezuela, Chavez before him. The doggone election was stolen through Venezuela, through Dominion software. They're all working together to orchestrate a lot of rebellion within our borders that lefties, because of their naivety, are being exploited over. That's what I think. Most people on the right are so done with liberals that they're starting to see them as total and complete enemies. I don't. I look at our side and see that some of the greatest minds for conservatives and the greatest movers and shakers came from former liberals. I look at liberals and I see a good heart, a lot of industrialness and willingness to put in work and effort towards what they believe in, and a set of principles that I agree with. I think that their principles get twisted and they blame the wrong people for the wrong things. But if we could ever win them over to our side, they have plenty to offer. Oh, I got smacked. So, although we are getting completely discombobulated from the inside out, that orchestration, funding, and the brainwork behind it is coming from these external sources. I think Trump knows that. And he is destroying that as we speak. So let's go ahead and let Turley continue. So to wrap the final point up, though, there does seem to be this MAGA online social influencer presence that is dooming about Iran. And Turley, they're talking about MAGA civil war. Bongino kind of threw his take out there and some evidence behind it that's the furthest thing from what's happening. They're trying to paint this war as incredibly unpopular. Turley is showing us that CBS's own poll says the opposite, as long as it's a quick war. I keep using the term war. I have to be careful of the terms here because the left, one of the things they're wanting to say is that Trump is declaring war illegally. Well, he hasn't declared a war. This is a skirmish in the technical sense, which is what the left is referencing. So that's their battleground. They're referencing the technical term in order to bring it into a legal environment. You see what I mean? Don't let them pull the switcheroo on you on this. If they're arguing that Trump has declared an illegal war, they are arguing for legal action here, that he's breaking the law. That means they are using the technical term. Not what you and I might philosophically consider to be a war. This is technically a skirmish, and Trump had 48 hours to notify Congress, which he did. They don't have a leg to stand on. So, anyway, let's continue.
And we're already seeing the writing on the wall in all of this.
Back this up a little.
He betrayed us. He destroyed the MAGA coalition. Nonsense. Horse feathers, poppycock.
I love that, man. I need to get a sound bite of that.
If this lasts for the 4 to 5 weeks that Trump has promised, this is and will remain an 80-20 issue. This gets higher support than border security, for heaven's sake.
I need one more foot, man.
76%. And we're already seeing the writing on the wall in all of this in terms of how long it's going to take. Take a look at this chart. This is a chart of the rate of Iranian ballistic missile launches. So in the first 24 hours of this operation,
wow, you guys aren't seeing
over
this.
350 ballistic missiles.
Let me see if I can actually capture this on screen just so you can get a quick picture of it. Look at this chart, guys. Again, he said it's the rate of their ballistic. Here it is right here. Iran ballistic missile launch trajectory. This is how many missiles that they're launching, right? They're basically going to be done in a few days if this is true and the rate of decay stays the same. Now, mind you, you need to keep in mind, even though it's their own voice and it is likely propaganda, they're saying that they're just going through their kind of like their trash legacy missiles right now, and they have a lot more modernized stuff available to them. But man, they're falling apart fast. Even if they do have it, I don't know what the likelihood is that they get to use it before they capitulate. And on top of that, we've demonstrated we have technology that can counteract the hypersonic missiles already. That's one of the fastest military tech cat and mouse catch-ups I've ever seen. So, anyway, let's let him continue.
On day 2, that number fell to 175. So it basically got cut in half. On day 3, that number dropped to 120. And as of day 4, it fell even further, down to 50. It's a 70-75% reduction in their ballistic missile capabilities. So if the rate of decay stays the same, at least when it comes to basic ballistic missile capabilities, the regime will completely collapse in terms of its ability to retaliate. They've been completely depleted of any ballistic missile capabilities. And then what? Well, I mean, you do have the drone technology. That is certainly very impressive. Russia has been using Iranian drone technology quite effectively in the Ukrainian theater. But every drone Iran launches, ironically, is a death sentence for the launcher itself.
Yeah.
The moment that booster ignites, it produces an infrared flash that American SBIRS satellites orbiting 22,000 miles above the Earth detect in real time, pinpointing the exact launch coordinates within seconds and relaying them to U.S. and Israeli strike assets. Iran can fire two.
We're going to listen to that again because I can testify to you as somebody who did 20 years and deployed to the Middle East a total of 3 times. I'm not the most experienced and I never saw combat, okay? I'm not trying to no stolen valor here or anything like that, but I was in for 20 years. I saw this war during peacetime and I saw it transition to wartime. I think I have some significant insight. And I'm telling you, that is U.S. military doctrine right there. That our intelligence is able to spot when something launches, whether it's a mortar team launching a mortar in the morning, in the early morning hours at a base, or whether it's a missile launcher, and then we go and we destroy the launchers. That's U.S. military doctrine at work right there. So we're going to back this up and listen to it again, because this is significant. To retaliate. They've been completely depleted of any ballistic missile capabilities. And then what? Well, I mean, you do have the drone technology. That is certainly very impressive. Russia has been using Iranian drone technology quite effectively in the Ukrainian theater. But every drone Iran launches, ironically, is a death sentence for the launcher itself. The moment that booster ignites,
It produces an infrared flash that American SBIRS satellites orbiting 22,000 miles above the Earth detect in real time, pinpointing the exact launch coordinates within seconds and relaying them to U.S. and Israeli strike assets. Iran can fire 2,000 drones and it won't matter because the same satellite constellations that tracked hundreds of Iranian missiles and drones during that April 2024 exchange with Israel, missile exchange with Israel, is now feeding a kill chain so fast that the launcher is destroyed before the drone even reaches its target.
Yeah.
And so this is all part of what.
So I'm inclined to believe that wherever he's getting his information, that rings true, because it matches exactly with how I have seen U.S. military operations implemented at a strategic level. Like, kind of, that's why I say doctrine. It's a fundamental belief of how we choose to operate on these kinds of things. That's our go-to strategy.
What we talked about yesterday, what increasingly is being called the Trump doctrine, which is itself rooted in the rising geopolitical dynamic known as technopolarity.
Okay.
And this is the idea that in a rising multipolar world, civilizational power is increasingly defined not by region, not by landmass, not by the size of your army, not by how deep you dig your bunkers, but by your mastery of the technological stratum, the invisible layer of stealth, satellite, precision, cyber, orbital, and AI-enabled systems that sits above the traditional battlefield, and whoever controls that stratum controls the world. You've heard it said.
You know, guys, whenever I was in Iraq, I was trying to train my troops. I had really some very young troops. We actually had to sign waivers to let them deploy because Air Force doctrine said that they were too inexperienced to trust with being in a war zone. They all did extremely admirably. I'm so proud of them. And so I tried to talk to them about seeing the big picture as much as possible while we were over there. And one of the things that we talked about was at that time we were dealing with, let's see, I need to make sure I don't discuss anything classified here. Let me think about this. Well, I can get my point across by being extremely, extremely general. Okay. What I was discussing with them was how warfare was changing technologically, and that it was my belief, as you watched the trend from, like, say, World War II on to the ways that we were seeing our present day military conduct military operations, that we were eventually working our way towards bloodless wars. There would be unmanned aircraft. This was me predicting this. Like, what was it? It was like 2010 or so. What was it even? I don't think it was 10. No, it was before then. It was like 07 or something like that. Right around the time that, like, World of Warcraft was real popular. And that these wars would be just as devastating in their consequences as far as the rise and fall of nation states, who defeated what, who took what land, or set up puppet governments and stuff like that, but that by and large, it would be more and more bloodless wars, and your primary human element would be small special forces units that had very, very tight goals and confined missions, typically behind enemy lines and infiltration type stuff. That's what I projected. And so, you know, you can hear what Turley is saying here and talking about, and kind of see how that's the direction it's going. More and more dealing with drones. We want to dominate the cyber area. We want to get into space. Oh, that guy got that egg. Okay. things of that nature. All right, let's let him keep going.
That he who has the high ground always has the advantage, right?
Yeah,
having the high
Bongino was
ground
talking
lets
about
a
this
force see farther, shoot farther, make the enemy constantly fight uphill against gravity, so every movement and attack costs the attacker more energy and exposes them longer to fire. Well, technopolarity puts the high ground on steroids. I mean, literally. It extends all the way into the sphere of astropolitics with satellites and the carving out of outer space shipping lanes for missile trajectories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bottom line, Trump is tapping into the American technopolar advantage to fight this war completely from above. Technopolar power doesn't need to be geographically close. It doesn't need forward bases. It doesn't need boots on the ground. The Iranian people are the boots on the ground. It operates at a completely different altitude of power, an altitude that Iran cannot interact with at all. This is the Trump doctrine. We can bend the world to American interests by tapping into our unrivaled technopolar power.
Now we're going to pause it right there, because I think if you were to talk to Turley himself, I've been listening to every single video this guy puts out every day for years now, dating all the way back to the original Trump presidency. I really I personally believe the Holy Spirit kind of randomly brought him across my YouTube feed, because I found him almost at the beginning of his online presence. And it was kind of a random chance. He was in his studio already. He wasn't communicating out of his basement. That was his first handful of videos, and I wasn't in that early, but it wasn't far from there. And I know that this guy does not have any interest in America shaping what the rest of the world thinks and how they operate. That's a globalist position. Turley is very anti-globalist. So I think what he's trying to tell us, now this is me speculating, but it's me speculating based off of let's just listen to what he said again. It goes completely against his ethos. I think he misspoke.
For missile trajectories. Bottom line, Trump is tapping into the American technopolar advantage to fight this war completely from above. Technopolar power doesn't need to be geographically close. It doesn't need forward bases. It doesn't need boots on the ground. The Iranian people are the boots on the ground. It operates at a completely different altitude of power, an altitude that Iran cannot interact with at all. This is the Trump doctrine. We can bend the world to American interests by tapping into our unrivaled technopolar power.
Okay, see, bend the world to American interests. That is not Turley. Turley does not believe in that. I think what he means is that we can take our competitors who are trying to twist our arm and reverse that pull and twist their arm and make them capitulate and do things according to how we want in something like a trade deal, or to cease and desist psyops within our borders. Not to go and influence their country like a Muslim country to raise the LGBT flag for us, So, I really believe strongly that he just kind of misspoke there, and that nation building is not what he has in mind, but instead American defense against people who would like to exploit us and influence us to operate in ways that harm us. All right, let's let him finish up here. This is the last of his first video.
So all of that suggests that the 76% of Americans who support this operation, if it only lasts days or weeks, are going to get precisely that. The days of forever wars are over. In fact, as many have noticed, Trump is actually putting an end to one. He's putting an end to a 47-year war against America.
I agree.
These Iranian nuts. Our technopolar moment has arrived. President Trump is boldly leading the way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, that we're putting an end to a 46-year-old war of the Ayatollahs against American interests, and anybody who wanted to ally with them and work through them as a proxy, which has absolutely been happening. You know, one of the few things that George W. did that I can look back in hindsight and say, yeah, I agreed with that, is, if I'm remembering correctly, he's the one that authored the idea of the axis of evil. And at the time, North Korea was a part of it, but he named North Korea, Iran, and I honestly don't remember if he said Russia or China. Knowing George, he probably said Russia. To me, I would say China. But the concept there, this axis of evil, not North Korea anymore. I started to say North Carolina, not North Korea anymore. But it would be... Bongino thinks Russia's a part of it. I don't. I don't know. I think Russia's kind of a little bit their own thing. They're not our friend, but they're not our arch enemy either. That's my take. I am not a pro-Ukraine person. I think that that's been propaganda from the very beginning. And I think Ukraine has been a laundering facility and piggy bank for Western deep states from multiple nations, and that's why it's being protected so fiercely. It's just a hotbed of corruption. That's what I think. So I'm not as anti-Russian as many others are, and especially those aligned with rhinos. But I would say Venezuela, Cuba, China, Iran. I think Russia does have a hand in it as far as they're a part of this alliance, and they're allied with Iran, and so they're going to have their moments also. What do we need to be doing now? Fly to honor hold. Okay.
Each day.
So, anywho, let's listen to his next Iran video. This is called China Just Shocked the World and Iran is Now Finished. Okay, this is the one earlier you heard me talk about. Look at how Iran is being isolated. This one right here is going to really, really bring that point home. Let's go ahead and get it started.
The one regime Tehran thought would bail them out and come to their rescue just sent a signal so shocking, so earth-shattering, that the mullahs are suddenly realizing they're fighting this war completely alone. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you rightly understand this absolutely historic moment that's unfolding in the Middle East and beyond with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. A growing number of analysts are realizing that this war in Iran is part of a much larger grand strategy. And at the heart of that strategy is China. The key here is that Iran is not simply a rogue state that poses an existential threat to countries in the Middle East and possibly the United States. Fundamentally, it has become a core pillar of China's Middle East strategy. China is Iran's single most important economic partner. Various energy trackers estimate that well over 80%, in recent months close to 90% of Iran's exported crude has been going straight to China. The New York Times calculated that roughly 5% of Iran's entire GDP now comes just from those oil sales to China. That's how critical this relationship is to keeping the regime's lights on. But even more importantly, the tens of billions of dollars that China sends to Iran helps to build the arsenal of long-range missiles, their drones, and the digital art infrastructure that enables the regime's authoritarian reign over its people. Those missiles, particularly hypersonic missiles, and an openly hostile Iranian navy that happens now to be at the bottom of the sea, served as a Chinese proxy to occupy and contain American power in the Gulf region. Every American ship, every American aircraft, Every American missile engaged in the Middle East is one taken away from the Taiwan Strait. Iran was a beneficiary of the Belt and Road Initiative and infrastructure projects financed by Beijing, and Beijing was enjoying a most favored nation relationship with the one country that controlled the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil supply passes through every day. So now you can understand why Iran felt, frankly, so invincible, why they were reportedly so cocky in their negotiations with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They were literally bragging that they had controlled about 460 kilograms of uranium enriched 60%, which they said was enough. They actually said it was enough to produce 11 nuclear bombs.
I don't know if we already knew this. I would imagine that we did, because U.S. intelligence and intelligence sharing with Israel is pretty thorough. But I think that's where Iran signed their death warrant, or the Ayatollah. You know, let's keep in mind that this is not a skirmish against the Iranian people. We're there supporting the Iranian people. This is against the government of Iran. So I think when they said that, and they tried to make that like an arguing point from a position of strength, when Trump heard about that, I think that we analyzed the situation and said, no way, Jose, that is way too dangerous to let a regime this crazy have that kind of power. And they don't know it yet, but negotiations are officially over. We're going to go cut the head off the snake. I think that's what happened.
Once further enriched to weapons grade, they openly boasted about it. And they did that because they frankly thought they were invincible. They had the single biggest army on the planet behind them in Beijing, a regime they were convinced would shield them with oil purchases, missiles, and diplomatic cover the moment things got hot. In their minds, that 60% stockpile plus China's backing meant that they could taunt Trump at the table. They could rattle the region with drones and proxies and still sleep soundly at night, certain that the dragon in the east would never let the hammer actually fall. And to make matters even worse, reports were coming out that China was about to arm Iran with CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles, as well as China's DF-17 hypersonic glide missiles. Now, that was obviously, there was obviously an international outcry over that, but China wouldn't budge.
Both China and Iran are two fully independent countries with their sovereignty. And there is no international law which prohibits China and Iran to engage with each other in commercial transactions. And China happens to produce some of the most sophisticated missiles of all kinds. And it's absolutely right for China and Iran to size up each other and engage in whatever economic and commercial transactions they desire to do that, including involving such military missiles. And I think the whole world should be put on notice that both China and Iran will have full sovereign right to do such commercial transactions with each other, and no country should pretend to be surprised.
So again, you can see why they were so cocky. However, you know what they say about pride. What Iranian officials apparently failed to factor in was that for all of that Iranian dependence on China, China was not equally dependent on Iran. Yeah, Iranian barrels matter. Roughly 13% of China's seaborne oil imports have been coming directly from Iran, but...
So, we're going to back that up a little bit because there was a lot going on. But that was a China diplomat, I assume, speaking with Russian media on their position. Okay, so let's back it up and just listen to the Chinese diplomat again. Turn the volume up some.
As well as China's DF-17 hypersonic glide missiles. Now, that was obviously, there was obviously an international outcry over that, but China wouldn't budge.
Both China and Iran are two fully independent countries with their sovereignty.
Okay.
And there is no international law which prohibits China and Iran to engage with each other in commercial transactions.
Right.
And China happens to produce some of the most sophisticated missiles of all kinds, and it's...
So this is China justifying the sale of some very, very good missiles to Iran. I say Iran. Whenever a lot of Western nations were saying, hey, that's dangerous and irresponsible. And China is basically saying, we don't care, and there's no say that you have in it. We are a sovereign nation. Iran is a sovereign nation. Go kick rocks.
Absolutely right for China and Iran to size up each other and engage in whatever economic and commercial transactions they desire to do that, including involving such military missiles. And I think the whole world should be put on notice that both China and Iran will have full sovereign right to do such commercial transactions with each other, and no country should pretend to be surprised.
So again, you can see why they were so...
So that's very strong rhetoric, right? Of course, no country is out there saying you don't have a right to do this. What they're saying is, hey, please don't do this. It creates an irresponsible... It's putting very strong weapons into irresponsible people's hands. And China is saying, we don't give a rip. We want to make the money. And they're using this pretext of stay out of our business. We're grown-ups too. But really just what it is that they want to make the cash and they don't care what anybody has to say about it or what the repercussions are. That will be your problem to deal with. We're allies with them. Well, okay, yeah, you're technically right, but now you're going to piss a bunch of us off. And let's see how that works out for you. See, I don't know. Somebody at some point in time decided that they felt like it would be good if China joined the world community. What's this do? A boot. That was weird. He just came right to where I was at and set up shop, man. Yeah. Go back. So all we're seeing here basically is China throw the middle finger at the world and say, we don't think there's anything you can do to stop it, and we don't care. You know, respect our authority, basically. It is a little bit, I think, childish.
cocky. However, you know what they say about pride. What Iranian officials apparently failed to factor in was that for all of that Iranian dependence on China, China was not equally dependent on Iran. Yeah, Iranian barrels matter. Roughly 13% of China's seaborne oil imports have been coming directly from Iran, but more than half of China's tanker-delivered oil comes from the broader Gulf and Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, UAE, Oman, Kuwait, and all of it sails through the Strait of Hormuz. So when the bombs started dropping on Tehran and Iranian forces started firing missiles in retaliation, that's when the regime looked to Beijing for those CM-302 ship-killing supersonic missiles so they could effectively shut down Hormuz. And that's when Beijing had to suddenly realize it had to choose. Does it risk 50% of its oil supply from the wider Gulf region just to protect that 13% from Iran? Or does it quietly step back, rhetorically condemn the violence, and then more or less look the other way? And to the regime's utter and complete shock, when they turned around expecting to see the Red Dragon having their backs, what Beijing just decided literally changed everything. But first, let me ask you a question. Are you working incredibly hard, maybe even successful by most standards, but you feel like you're spread too thin, right? Not enough butter over too much bread, you might say. Money just with the thing is giving you one to train. So it was a /Turley Freedom right now and reserve your spot. Your bright, beautiful future is waiting. Let's go get it. In a stunning turnaround, a Chinese spokesperson denied any accuracy to the report that China had agreed to sell Iran advanced CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles, and most certainly will not be doing so. So it was a stunning about-face, and it made it absolutely clear China's not getting involved in this. It is most certainly not going to war with America over Iran, over 13% of their oil. They condemned the strikes, they shouted sovereignty, but when it came time to actually back up Tehran with real hardware, the very hardware they promised, China folded. No CM-302s.
Yep.
No air defense systems, no targeting data, no satellite queuing, nothing that would drag them into direct confrontation with Trump.
Now, see, I think Trump did something here that I've never seen an American administration do since, not since, but including all the way back to Vietnam. We seem to back down from the size and threat of China's military. I don't think it's really truly out of fear. It kind of looks like it, but I think there's deals being made in the background. And Trump doesn't do that. Trump doesn't take deals. And I think he struck Iran and dared China to lift a finger, and China balked. And you're about to hear Turley use the term fair weather friend. That's exactly right. China is only interested in itself. If you don't think Russia saw that happen and is kind of thinking to themselves about how much of an ally, of a dependable ally they have, you know, I mean, I don't know that to be true. I just kind of think if it were me, I would. This hunter's going to town, man. Nine of 10. I'm surprised. I thought we pulled another one. I'm surprised that one didn't show up. Well, it's about to. Haha, take that. Looks like we're done. All right, let's let Turley continue.
And it gets even more brutal. Beijing's foreign minister went out of his way to tell Iran to pay attention to the reasonable concerns of its neighboring countries. In other words, stop hitting Saudi Arabia. Stop hitting the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar. Not because Iran was violating their sovereignty, but because those are the very states that ship most of China's oil and LNG through Hormuz. And so obviously China made it even more clear that Tehran was not to even think about closing Hormuz, with energy outlets reporting that Beijing is leaning hard on Iran to keep the sea lanes open because Asian imports, especially Chinese imports, are at risk of traffic holds. I don't even know what navy they would use to close it at this point. So Iran thought it was going to leverage China, but in reality, it was China leveraging Iran. Iran was China's vassal, their proxy in a Middle East. They dumped tens of billions of dollars of investment in Iran, and now it's literally gone up in smoke. For the last few years, commentators told us that this was the dawn of a new anti-American axis. China, Iran joining Russia, building an alternative order in Asia. And they certainly were doing that during the Biden years. But now with the rise of Trump and America's civilizationalist renewal, Trump called the bluff in this asymmetrical relationship because he knew that it was Iran that had literally everything to lose. The numbers are in. Chinese investment in Iran has fallen dramatically short of the axis that was promised. China wanted discounted oil and leverage. Iran wanted protection and parity. This war has exposed just how asymmetrical that relationship really is, because when it came time for China to meet the moment, Iran found out the hard way that they were nothing more than fair weather friends. Iran has been completely isolated. No one is coming to their defense. Hezbollah's in tatters, Hamas has been crushed, the Houthis are a no-show, and China, the red dragon that Iran so brazenly thought their friend, is literally nowhere to be found. The days of the Iranian regime are coming to an end. Ironically, it appears all thanks to China.
All right. So that was Turley's take on it. I agree with it as of right now. You know, all of this stuff, this is all projection, so you have to watch how things actually unfold. But Turley is typically right. Like I said, I've been watching him for years. And so, we live in an interesting world, you know, we live in interesting times. There's a lot of stuff going on. We need to start picking this stuff up too. I think right now, you know, I don't have a controller. It's telling me to go to a dungeon, and I think it's not going to pick up on the questing until I've ticked these or I've actually accomplished them. But prior to this stuff, it told me to go hand in my quests. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to wrap this episode up. We're at an hour 12 right now. So we're probably staring at about an hour 30. Well, no. I think I'll be done before an hour 30. As long as I can find home base. Where is Honor Hold at? Sethgore. Falcon Watch. Honor Hold. Here we go. Okay, well, maybe we can pick some of this stuff up. How much do I need? One of 30. Well, that's a lot. So, I'm going to do this off screen. But yeah, you know, Iran operated from a position that they felt like their biggest asset was that they had China standing behind them and China's million-man army. Trump pointed out how that seems to have led to some pretty bold rhetoric during meetings with the Trump administration. I think that happened in Geneva just last week. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And that fell through for them. They thought also that whenever they lashed out and hit a number of the Gulf states with missiles, that those states would turn around and blame Trump, creating pressure, international pressure, social media type popular sentiment against you sort of pressure to stop the war. They thought it would fracture the alliance with the Arabian states. It hasn't done any of that. Now, from what I'm hearing, the Kurds of Iraq are sending ground troops into Iran. I thought I heard Saudi Arabia was doing the same, but I may be misunderstanding Saudi's contribution there and what they're doing specifically. I thought it was ground troops, but it could be some other way of helping out, but they've definitely entered. I'm recently trying to learn how to pronounce this the way that they pronounce it. I think it's Qatar. A lot of Americans, and what I've been told in the past, we say Qatar. From what my research online is that's not correct. It's Qatar. There's like a soft R at the end, and the emphasis is on the K-A-H part, or in their spelling, Q-U-A. Anyway, I don't know. All I'm saying, I don't know. That's just what it looks like it might be. Those people were initially, their rhetoric was very strongly pro-Iranian. Then they got hit with a missile and they flipped their tune. There's a meme going around right now that there's a split in Muslim nations as far as whether to support the Trump and the American and Israeli attack on Iran. And it lists the nations that are for it, and it's all these Gulf states. And then it lists the Muslim nations that are against it, and it says UK, France, and Germany. I can't help but laugh. I'm so sorry, guys. It's mean, but it's funny because it's true. You know? Goodness gracious. But God bless you in your efforts to get your nations back. Never lose faith in the power of popular sentiment. If you can get a populist movement going, you can fight the machine. And so, best of luck to you. I don't know what all's happening on the German and France side. Marine Le Pen seems to have been sewn up. I don't think that's going to last. I think she's pretty smart, and we'll find a way to outflank it. I have no idea what's happening in Germany. In the UK, I do know that there is a new party called Restore that has stood up, and one of its core principles is mass deportation. And that looks like the way to go to me for what y'all are facing. But anyway, there you go. There's the situation on Iran from Turley's perspective. I can tell you Bongino pretty much aligns with all of that for the most part. I don't know if I need to pick this up. The exorcism, oh yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Use the prayer beads.
Be kind, warm wishes to you, Dionys Haka.
Okay, so I think we target him. Here's the prayer beads. Homeboy's dying. We should see some spirits appear, I think. Because he's being afflicted, so this priest is forcing them to expose themselves. Shiznit's starting to happen. How come I can't use these? Do I need to target him? Target either Anchorite Barada or the Fiends. Okay.
Arcanon Pores.
Okay. I have not been able to use these beads yet. Invalid target. What about you? No.
Open your heart to the light.
Man, this ain't doing nothing.
May the light embrace you.
Oh, there we go. I've been hitting the wrong button. I've been right-clicking it. Oh no! I don't know what to do here, man. We'll have to read that quest. I'll have to do that offline. Did we win? Holy smokes, that's an endurance test. I don't have a failed. Colonel Jewel saved 1 of 1. Alright.
May the light embrace you. Good health, long life.
Things are getting kind of desperate there for a minute. Assistant Klaatu has informed you that Force Commander Danath Trollbane has been seeking you. Okay, well, let's go turn that in, and then I think we'll be in a position to go ahead and save this or end this recording. You know, we have so many things going on with the distilling of arguments down to their constituent parts. Right, their barest, most raw elements that we're really clearly seeing the black and white nature now of various philosophies. That's why there's so much conflict, in my opinion. We are past all the gray area where people can kind of find middle ground. And the pain in the neck part of that is that it makes you live in a very hostile environment. But the positive thing is that you can see which ideology is working and which one should I accept and which one should I reject. And society will make a determination.
Greetings.
I think we're in one of those eras. Drillmaster Zurak. Okay. This must be... Oh, suggested players too. Okay.
Be careful.
We will take that. And we're about a quarter of the way through. Level 60. Maybe a little bit less than that. So we've made some progress. I don't know if I would call it good progress, but we've made some progress. But yeah, the times that we live in, man, we're seeing some incredible things happen. And the geopolitical shift, I've said before, I think what we are living through right now, you and I, at this very moment, I think we're living through a really historical moment that is experiencing at the very same time the upheaval of 2 of the biggest seismic changes in modern history. And that is the Industrial Revolution and the Enlightenment, all happening at the same time. We have a major tech surge that is changing. Just look at AI, changing how we approach things. It's creating the elimination of some jobs and the birth of new jobs, just like the original Industrial Revolution. Well, there are winners and losers in that, and some of the losers are people who have huge amounts of resources and money and stakes in the old way of doing things and are actively fighting against the progression of technology, right? So it creates a hostile environment with seismic. When I use these terms, think of an earthquake. How does an earthquake work? It's the plates of the earth, the tectonic plates, clashing with each other. And that's what creates these seismic waves. And that's how I think of what we're experiencing. These are huge, enormous cultural and financial tectonic plates clashing with each other. At the same time, we're facing something akin to the Enlightenment period, where you have a clash of ideologies and a doing away of an old way of thinking, not necessarily making everything in the old way completely irrelevant, but approaching things in a fundamentally different way that, because people are change resistant, is causing new questions to arise, causing perhaps a crisis of trust or faith, and is equally creating very, very hostile environments with these clashes of ideologies. And we're seeing which ones are proving through the test of time and which ones are falling and collapsing in on themselves under the stress of reality, right? So, man, it's just such an exciting time that I sometimes feel bad for people who are not tuned in to this kind of stuff naturally, like me, or like people like me who find this kind of thing fascinating. There are some people out there not cut out for this. That it's not their forte, it's not their specialty, it's not what God made them for. They find all this stuff to be either irrelevant to the nuts and bolts of life or downright annoying, and they would just rather go and busy themselves with something else. God bless them, because we need people paying attention to everything that makes this world turn and keeps it turning, right? Or keeps society afloat. But man, for the things that are happening right now are of such a grand state that I really do feel bad for people who can't see the movie, the absolute grand opera unfolding before us. It's got to be one of the most dramatic moments in human history. There's just a lot going on. And I feel really glad that God birthed me into this time period. There was a point in time that I used to feel like I was born too late, like my soul belonged in a previous time. I didn't really click with the values and mechanics of how my society worked. I thought a lot of things that we did was foolhardy. I thought we were really, really foolish and how, I don't know, flagrantly, is that the right word? How cavalier we were with certain aspects of the human experience. But I heard a preacher say one time, I don't remember who it was either, and don't get it twisted, I'm not, a saint. I don't walk on water. In fact, here for the past 6 to 9 months, I haven't gone to church very much because my sleep schedule is just completely out of whack. And you can tell because I'm cursing a lot more. That always seems that's one of my telltale signs. My flesh is starting to really overcome my spirit because I'm a little bit in a drought, so I'm trying to fix that this coming Sunday, as a matter of fact. But, so I'm no saint, right? There's nothing special about me, but I really think that this preacher, whoever it was I was listening to, really kind of unlocked something for me. And he said, don't ever think that you were born too soon or born too late. And boy, my eyes snapped open when that happened, because that's exactly what I thought. I was like lamenting how I didn't really fit in with my society, my peers. I thought differently. My worldview was different. It didn't really click like puzzle pieces, And he said, whenever you do that, whenever you think to yourself, I was born too soon or I was born too late, that's a slap in the face to God. That's effectively saying God made a mistake. And he said, that is not true. God made you from the inside out, and with all the talents and the insights and the natural abilities that you have and the instincts and the things that you lean towards and how your personality works, he made that for right here, right now. You were designed especially for this moment. And boy, I take a lot of solace in that, because we are in one of the most contentious moments I can think of. Maybe not physically contentious, right? There's a lot of times that I think this is like the easiest revolution I've ever had. I'm a keyboard warrior. It's the easiest revolution in human history. Look at what Iran is having to do for their revolution. So it's not the most physically contentious, but mentally, philosophically, spiritually, yeah, it might be. It might be one of the most contentious times in history. I wouldn't say the most. Might not even be top 5, but I think it's probably top 10. So with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. I will say God bless you. May the Lord smile upon you and keep you safe in times like this, and to give you a spirit of discernment so that you have that spidey sense, that tingly feeling in the back of your neck, the hair standing up on your arm whenever somebody tries to snow you with propaganda. And I mean that for anybody listening to this. I don't care if you're a liberal, a conservative, an atheist, a Muslim, a Christian, a Hindu. I really do pray for the Lord to smile upon you and keep you safe and give you moments of reprieve to be able to see with clarity so that we can all escape Plato's cave. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray and thank you. Amen. All right, guys. Again, I'm Aesop Grimm. Thank you for coming by the channel. I hope you like what you saw. More importantly, I hope all is well in your neck of the woods, and I will see you in the next episode where this story continues.
This place ain't no such thing as civilized. It's man, so in love with